So how do you pronounce that in English? WAV? Wave? What? I'm gonna look it up. Hi everyone, I hope you're doing great. In this video, I talk about how you get your music on the radio as an independent artist. We'll cover how you find the right hosts and the right shows, and also, and most important, how they expect you to pitch your music to them. To get some pro first-hand advice, I consulted radio host and a friend of mine, Mar Sellars. She gave me her 5 tips on how to pitch a radio host. Mar lives and works between Canada and LA. She manages a whole bunch of really amazing bands, and she has her own radio show called Mar on Music. The show airs every Monday in Ottawa and in Sackville, New Brunswick. I'm definitely gonna make sure to link it in the description below so you can check it out. Also, if you make music anywhere between indie, rock, punk, definitely check out her show because you can also submit music to Mar's show. She only plays new music from smaller and indie artists. So I really recommend you watch this video till the end and listen closely to the tips that Mar gave me. If you haven't subscribed to this channel. If you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, please do so. I am Sue, I'm a music marketing manager, and Tech 1 is all about music business advice for independent artists. Let's get to the video though. When I was a child, we basically listened to the radio like all day long. That's how we found out about new music, and we made mixtapes and all that stuff. And even back then, it was pretty clear that the bigger commercial radio stations kind of like tended to only play bigger major label artists. You kind of like had to really like dig deeper to find radio stations that are a bit more nichey and play music that is a bit more off from the mainstream and a bit less commercial. That pretty much is still the case today, but as an independent artist today, you have a very big advantage, and that is the internet. Thanks to the internet, even smaller radio stations like college radio, like community radio, they have a chance to have a way bigger reach because they can also be streamed online. In fact, some stations are actually only online these days. That means that not only people driving a car or people who live nearby can listen to that station, but also people who are genuinely interested in that kind of music or that specific show have the chance to just go on the internet and stream whatever show they want. And I know a lot of people only ever talk about playlists these days, how to pitch to Spotify and Deezer playlists and whatnot, but also radio plays can be at least as important. Radio shows are kind of limited by nature because there are not as many out there as there are playlists probably on Spotify. But that also means that especially the niche ones can have a very dedicated following. But even bigger radio stations like public and national radio, they also take submissions from independent artists. BBC Radio has a whole platform called BBC Music Introducing, where they support unsigned, undiscovered, and under-the-radar UK artists. Anyone who lives in the UK can submit their music there. Similar for the CBC in Canada as another example. They have the CBC Music Library. You just upload your track, some additional information, you maybe indicate a show, a specific show that you might be interested in, and off it goes. Long story short, besides all those other well-known streaming platforms or video platforms, radio is just another place to get more exposure for your music. As usual, you have to put in some research in the beginning, but once you have a list with relevant shows and email addresses, you can use that list anytime and every time you have a new song coming out. With anything in music, PR and radio is basically just a part of that, I suggest start local. And the best way to start here is with college and community radio stations near you. Those local radio hosts are always looking for new local talent, and they will also be more likely to look for new, less mainstream and commercial music. Even if you're still new in the music industry, your chances are way higher to get played on those local radio stations. Just go to the website and check out what shows do they have in their program, what genres do they cover, would your song be a good fit for one of the shows and one of the genres, who's the music director, who are the hosts and the producers, do they have a general email address for music submissions, what are the submission guidelines, do they want a specific audio format, do they want a biography. I think you get the idea. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to read those guidelines carefully though. Most stations will probably want to get their music submissions via email today, but if there's a station that clearly says that they want CDs, then you will have to respect that. It's a major turnoff if you don't submit the music the way they asked for it. They might just not listen to your music at all if you don't follow the guidelines, and that would be a waste of time for both of you. Especially with those more local radio stations, as they are taking in more submissions from new and independent artists, you will most likely find all of those guidelines on their websites. Which brings us to another very important point, quotas. Many countries have a so-called quota, which basically means that TV and radio stations have to play a certain percentage of music that was at least partly written, produced, and performed by people from that country. Those quotas are usually around 40%. This only applies to broadcasters and not for playlist curators, which also means that is another advantage of radio stations. If you're an artist from Canada, for example, and you're pitching your music to Canadian radio stations, you gotta make it as clear as possible for them to see right away that you are a Canadian artist. They might need one other Canadian track on their radio show, and that might just be you. On the other hand, if there are radio stations that are covering your specific genre, I really do recommend reach out to the host and the producer of the show directly. If you can't find the personal details on the website of the radio station, then you either reach out to the station and just ask for those details, or you find the person on social media. Follow them first, of course, but then just introduce yourself, tell them what you like about their radio show, and then just ask them if it's okay to submit some music and which email address you should send it to. Super important point here, especially when you reach out to the host directly, really put some time and effort into listening to the radio show and to figure out if your song is actually a good fit for the show, the genre, and the whole musical vibe of the show. You don't want to waste your time, and you obviously also don't want to waste theirs. They're getting so many submissions and messages a day. You really want to make sure you make a good impression. You might have to pitch them a whole bunch of times with different songs over the course of months or maybe even years before you hear back or before you get a radio play. I really tell you, do not give up though, because that's how everybody starts, and it's never easy in the beginning. If they see your artist name and your new releases pop up in their inbox over and over again, they will notice you eventually. And I know this whole networking thing is not everybody's thing, but honestly, think of it as building a relationship or a connection or maybe even a friendship with that host or producer. Be friendly, be interested, be professional, be patient, and I guarantee you your success rate is going to be so much higher. All right, let's get to the next point. Let's look at the content you want to send to the radio stations. Let's start with the most important, the song. There are a few rules when it comes to radio. First, the length of the song. Anything between 3 and 4 minutes is ideal. Anything that is really long, like a 10-minute prog rock song, or anything that is short, I don't know, a 30-second hardcore song, for example, those tracks might have a harder time to get on the radio. Second, your song cannot have any swear words in it. If you have a single release and your song has swear words in it, then either think about making a radio edit and maybe cutting those words out, or just go and pick another song, because otherwise you will have very limited chances of getting played on the radio. And third, pick a song that grabs the listener's attention quickly, right away. Not necessarily the song that has a 1-minute intro, because that song is going to have a hard time on the radio. And also, those people get tons of emails and tons of songs submitted, so you want to make sure that you make a good impression fast. I also recommend that when you release an EP or an album, really make a choice. Pick 1, maybe 2 songs that you want to pitch to the radio. They really probably won't have time to listen to your full album, or maybe not right away. So really make the choice for them and recommend a good song that is a good fit and a good match for radio. The song obviously has to come in good audio quality. So as always, when you release music, make sure that it's properly mixed and mastered. And again, have a look at the guidelines of the radio stations. They will let you know which audio format they want. All right, that much about the technical side, but what are the best practices when it comes to pitching a radio host? As I mentioned in the beginning, I wanted to get some insights from somebody who has a radio show themselves and gets hundreds of submissions every single week. So I hit up my friend Mar, and she gave me her 5 tips on how to pitch a radio host. Mars tip number 1, put yourself into the receiving person's shoes. It's pretty simple. What would you want to know about an artist? Radio producers get hundreds of emails and music submissions every single day. You want to make it as easy as possible for the other person to check out your music. You don't want it to be difficult at all, and you want to grab their attention right away. If you write an email, write a short introduction. Who are you? Why do you email them? And why do you think your song is a good fit for the show? List what other artists you sound like. You might have seen that before in other emails and press releases. RIYL, recommended if you like. So what you basically do, you drop a few other names of artists that are maybe a bit better known than you are, that have the same sound or a similar sound at least. If the person on the other end likes that artist, the chances are higher that they will actually listen to your song as well. Of course, you should also add some release info to your email, like the release title, the artist name obviously, maybe the composer of the song, and also an ISRC if you have it. That's the identification code for your song. Include the artwork of the release, but also include a photo of you, an artist picture that maybe even gives away the vibe and the genre of your music already. So basically the person on the other side only has to look at the picture and they already know what they can expect. And then, of course, add a short bio. Where are you from? What makes you special? What's the story of your song? What are you releasing and doing in the near future? Are you going on tour, for example? Or are you playing a show in that town? All of that is important information that has to go in your email. But then again, please keep it as short as possible. Radio staff, radio hosts, they get tons of emails every single day. They won't have time to read your full life story. They really just want to see the key facts, 1, 2, 3. What are the most important things they have to see that will convince them to pick your song? You should definitely also include some links to your website or your social channels in your email, because the host might want to check you out before they pick your song, which also means that you have to be somewhat active on your social media profiles. You take your career seriously, for sure, but you want other people to be able to tell that also from your profile. If you send your submission as an email, I also recommend that you make your artist name as visible as possible. Add it as a name to your email address if you want to, or just add it to the subject line. It might take a few songs before they actually give you a listen, and you want to make sure that they see your artist name over and over again and realize that you keep releasing new music. Enough about that though. Let's get to Mars tip number 2. Don't send streaming links that involve logging in. Always send a streaming link that does not require logging into an application, like for example Spotify or Apple Music. You need an account to listen to music on there. For the best results, you should definitely use a SoundCloud private stream or Disco AC. Again, this comes down to making it as easy as possible for the radio host to listen to your music with one click and no effort. And we have a similar situation with gigantic download files. Never attach them, obviously. Always include an option to download a 320 MP3. If they do want a WAV file, they will ask for it, or better, you even give both options for both downloads. And also remember, you cannot play streams on the radio, so a programmer will always need a real audio file. You should also give them the option to just download one track, and that's going hand in hand with what I said before. Pick one track, because the programmer doesn't necessarily want to download the whole album, because then their hard drive is going to be super packed and full in no time. Mars tip number 3, make your best track obvious. People usually listen to one track, maybe two, but definitely not more than 3 tracks before they make a decision on if or which track they want to play on their radio show. So make sure that they listen to the strongest track first, which also means tell people which of your tracks they should listen to. That can be either the track you're promoting, maybe a single release or something that just came out, but if you have another song on the release that you think is actually more suitable for radio, you might want to go with that one. You definitely have to make sure to mark which songs are actually acceptable for radio. As I mentioned before, a lot of radio stations won't play a song if there's a swear word in it, so definitely if you have a swear word in one of your songs, mark it as explicit content. Mars tip number 4, and I've mentioned that one briefly, say where you are from. A lot of radio stations and a lot of countries have rules about the content they play. In Canada, for example, most radio stations have to play at least 35% of Canadian content. And in the UK, it's a similar situation. The BBC has local shows and a mandate to represent artists from various regions. So definitely mention where you're from. If you pitch music to a radio station in your own country, you might get programmed more often. And Mar's tip number 5, and I find that super, super important, is be nice. Please be polite. Do not be too pushy. It is totally okay to email somebody twice or maybe 3 times in case you think they might have missed your email. But if somebody hasn't replied 3 times, then they're either way too busy or they're just not interested, and then it's just time for you to move on to the next song. In the end, pitching your song to radio is pretty similar to other kinds of music promotion and music PR, and one of the biggest secrets as usual is patience. Keep trying, keep pitching, make people aware of you, and you will already be ahead of the game. I hope you found those tips useful. If you have any other tips on how to get your music on the radio, please share them in the comments below, and I see you all very, very soon. Oh, it actually did. Did I record that? Oh, oops. Yeah, I don't even know how to pronounce it. Wave, anything. You know what I mean. W-A-V.